Hey everybody, I'm here with Kayla here at Ozark Holistic Center. She's been really nice to come and do our next kind of interview with us. And I work with her because she is also an individual that was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and that I've had the opportunity to work with her and work through this process a little bit. So we want to kind of go into her background, her story of, because she came in, if I remember right, was it 8 months ago or 10 months ago, and not when you came in, sorry, but whenever the whole process
right
kind of
10.
started. Right at 10 months ago. 10 months ago, almost 11 months ago.
Yeah.
And so you're a teacher. You have 2 kids now, and it was after that, your second child coming out of kind of delivery, child going, you had a lot of that, what's often looked at as, just that exhaustion, everything after the baby's born, which every mom has. And then it just kept sticking around. Yeah. And it wouldn't go away, and it kept getting worse, and yeah, you kind of go from there.
Yeah. So my second daughter was 3 months old, and I was getting ready to go back to work that Monday. She was starting school, and my husband was starting a new job that Monday, so it was just like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
So that Saturday night, I remember it very vividly, at 2:04 in the morning, woke up and just felt sick, and have had the flu before and was like, man, I've got a horrible flu.
Yeah.
High fever, just body aches, the whole thing. So went to the walk-in clinic the next morning, negative for flu. But the symptoms never quit, and they kept going and getting worse, and I was having severe brain fog. I could not function. I had horrible vertigo. Was hard to stand up. I had about 101 fever for almost 3 months.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. I had terrible joint pain, very debilitating, to where I would have to have help walking. Would sometimes have to have help someone getting me into the restroom. I was in bed for several weeks. Had to have my in-laws and my parents move in with us and split duties to help us with 2 kids.
Yeah.
And then wasn't able to go back to work that Monday. And symptoms kept getting worse, severe ear pain, felt like I had a bladder infection all the time. So that's when the role of doctor's appointment started.
Started up. And what was that from kind of when that first day you woke up until, that was pretty quick. I mean, that was all these symptoms came on within just a pretty short amount of time.
They did, and looking back, I think there were symptoms there that I overlooked.
Yeah.
The extreme fatigue, when this fatigue started, I had a 3-year-old or 2-year-old at the time, and I was pregnant. So I'm tired. I don't feel good.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the summer, and I'm pregnant with a kid.
Yeah.
Then the exhaustion kept going, and and when I couldn't get out of bed, the first thought was, let's get her to the doctor, and she has postpartum, which was like, okay, so this is it, but I feel really sick and I have a fever. So that was kind of my something just doesn't seem right.
Yes.
So went in, and they did diagnose me with postpartum, and that's where it started, and that's where I was put on medicine, and was grateful to do so, but symptoms got drastically worse when that happened. So then we started another doctor's visit, and I was told that I had bronchitis. Okay. So put on a different drug. Then I ended up in the hospital and was told that I had pneumonia. So started a very heavy dose of antibiotics, which I had no idea was going to really make me sick, because it was not good for Lyme.
Right.
And in the back of my head, I kept mentioning to every doctor I saw, could it be Lyme disease? And was told no. No, couldn't.
Good.
So doctor after doctor after doctor, traveling everywhere, and then the blood work started, and then the tests were run. And I did have, go ahead.
Yeah, and you had a lot of tests run. I mean, when she came in with a binder, and she said, well, here's the binder, which I wanted to see, and I told her to bring the binder in, bring the binder in, I wanted to see it. Because you even went through food allergy testing, which can be really helpful in this recovery process. But you went through food allergy testing. You went through. You did go through some of the different tick-borne disease testing. You came in with a thyroid test.
Right.
Yeah, everything, huge binder.
Right. Thyroid, tick titer testing. You name it, I was tested, but it came back negative.
Right.
and again was told no, no, no. And I just kept pressing the issue of could this be it? And so then when I walked into my doctor's office and said, I don't know anymore, we've run every test in the book and let's put your referral into Mayo. And something just said that's not the place I need to go. And I think it was that week that I saw you were doing a talk on Lyme disease.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was like my awakening moment of, I knew in my head, I knew in my heart, this is what I had, but all these tests had negative. And then, friends and family are kind of like, everything says negative, I don't think that's it. And they were very supportive, but it's hard when everything comes back negative and you know that that's what it is.
Right.
So that's when I came to hear your talk, and it was like this awakening moment, and I sat in my car for I don't know how long and just, sobbing of like, somebody believes me, because that's truly what it felt like was, it wasn't real, but it is.
I didn't know that part of it, so I appreciate hearing that part. That's cool to hear that part of it. And we got really lucky with you though, because you, one, not only really believe that you have it, there's a reason why, and you know this, but just for the camera, so the basic blood test for Lyme disease, you're only testing against a certain set of strands of Lyme disease. And so it's really common for that to come back negative. And there's even some faults potentially in that test, of false negatives, false positives, those kind of things. That is even in here like a base test we use because how simply you can get a hold of it. But when all the symptoms match up, and nothing else is quite making sense, there's other tests you can run too. And we got lucky with you because you had already ran what we call the IGenex test. So there's a company out there called IGenex, and they just have a much more comprehensive testing for Lyme disease. And so within a week of us starting treatment, you actually got those results back, and that came back, gave us the positive for Lyme disease.
Right. It did, and that was another aha moment, I'm not crazy and I do have Lyme disease. And just going through those tests, and the tests were after my acute phase. So that was part of it too. I had moved into the chronic stage at that point, and so those tests were ongoingly coming back
as negative. Yeah, so that's another thing there too. In the acute phases, it's much easier to come back with a positive on that kind of more basic blood test for Lyme. And as you said, when you move into the chronic, you're really looking at some of those specialty laboratories to be able to actually really nail that down as a true diagnosis there. And so then we started a process, and so I also want to give people a little window into kind of what we do in here. So we go through a whole series of tests of what's called muscle testing or applied kinesiology in order to look at the avenue we've seen to help with the Lyme and all the symptoms that people are dealing with that particular condition. Is one, going through and identifying varying foods that they might be reactive to. And that might be because of the condition or where their body is right now. So usually that list is a little bit long. Yeah. But it helps even, you'd come in with that whole blood test, right? Where it gives you tons and tons of foods. We kind of narrow it down. It is a tight band sometimes, but we're hoping to only take out about 6 or 7 foods, and that's kind of about what we did with you. Which unfortunately is kind of your common ones. Gluten, dairy, those kind of things are pretty common. We also use that same series of testing to identify specific herbs in order to start what we call kind of our protocol on that. So we identify for you specific herbs that we're going to use. Some are well known in the Lyme community, some of them are not. It's just the different ones that we have here in office.
And I will say this.
Yeah.
What made me so hopeful too is that you said, I don't have a protocol. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you this is what we're going to do because it's going to be ever going and changing, and we've got to figure out what works for you. You didn't say, I've got the cure-all because this fits everybody. And that was just so hopeful. He's going to work with me specifically, not what works for everybody. And that's exactly how it ends up working, is we identify specific herbs for a specific person. Yeah. And then with Lyme, because of its difficulty, because of how fast it can change, we do have to touch bases pretty often, and those even rotate. And you've seen that, where we'll switch this herb for that herb. And in that process too, which you ran into this, right? I think it was like a week or 2 in, you were actually doing pretty good, and then we had a setback, and we had to kind of switch things out again, and then kind of bring you back. And so now we're only, I think we're about 2, maybe 2.5 months in. Yeah.
and kind of tell us where you are now versus when we started.
Right, so when we started, I was able to do some things on my own, but just shortly before that, I mean, I was bedridden.
Yeah.
I am free of joint pain.
Okay.
My head pressure is almost all the way gone.
Fantastic.
I'm functioning. I mean, I'm getting out of bed.
Yeah.
I can take care of my kids again. I can be a help to my husband. My ear pressure is gone. The brain fog that I mentioned, I'm scared to say it, I haven't had it in probably 5 days, which is literally my longest stretch in 10 months.
Yeah.
So I'm 1,000% better from what I was. I mean, just like night and day from where I was. It's amazing to me. In the 2.5 months when we first met, I think you said, don't quote me, but typically let's like 3 or 4 months. And in my mind, I've been doing this already for 7 months with no answers and getting worse. So to come this far in 8-9 weeks is like huge.
Yes. And you have been like fantastic in this process because she's been very communicative. When there has an issue come up, you've communicated with us. You've had to pop in sometimes for some kind of emergency visits, if I would say, just a way for us to be able to figure out why are you not feeling as good today, or why did you kind of take this sudden dive. And again, some of that's the nature of Lyme, where it adapts, it changes. Some of that's just the nature of this process, that detoxification and eradication process. But usually we can catch it, change it, and there we are, 2.5 months in, and it's going really, really good.
And a huge thank you to you, because I'll come in and I'm like, fix me, like you have to help. And he does, and we do some testing right then on the spot, which is phenomenal to have those answers immediately.
Yes.
And be able to change those things, because once that switch happens, usually within, 24 hours, I'm much better.
Okay.
And that is part of it, that it does change so quickly.
Yes.
That's been such a blessing to be able to come in and have you change some things that's going on with me quickly and
cool.
Make it better. Yeah.
Cool. So fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this. I hope this is a help to anyone out there that is either battling this condition or thinks they might be. Again, we kind of mentioned some different tools you can look at to try to help further identify this. So thank you guys so much, and
Thank you.